Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Lids, and we're back for some more Mardek, and we are back in the Dark Temple. And what gives? Why are we back here, you ask? Well, if you remember, once upon a time, we went down to the bottom room here, and we saw some stuff. We saw Gope, which I suppose we could say a quick hello to him and see if there are things we could sell or things of that nature. That's not the reason why we're here, though. Sure, maybe we have an extra Shadow Blade that we just picked up, and like I was saying before, 2,000 gold, I mean, at this point in time when we're pretty broke is actually not a bad thing, so sure, why not? But, if we were to say, keep going over here, this door previously was locked. However, we can use that Eldritch key that we just picked up from the shop in the slums of Aeropolis. We end up in part of the Sandflow Caves here. Of course, this is at least the area in which the Dark Temple is located, but this area seems a little bit darker. Light Essence is not dark, but is a very limited item, because at least in the past, there might still be monsters that can drop that back in the Sun Temple, but for the most part, it seemed like it was difficult for us to find enough of those to use on, well, there are several crafting things, like the Shield of Light. Well, we're over to some Lupazars here, and these are some enemies that we've seen many times before. Notably, though, these guys are quite high level, 28. Might be one of the highest level enemies we've seen thus far outside of bosses. So, still relatively low HP here. Let's throw on a solid Sonata, because that's what Eloine is, at least at the moment, trying to master. Then I'm thinking Thunderbolt is going to be quite useful here. And even though I missed the reaction, Charlotte says, "Don't worry, Lids, I gotcha." But yeah, it's like the Sandflow Caves, just that things look a little bit dark and gloomier than usual. So let's take another look at our map here. 1 of 5 chests, yes. Ought we go to the right here, or seems like there's one little area down in this direction? Don't recall as to, well, which way we want to go here. There is another chest, more silver ore. Again, that is a valuable and limited resource, so we want to make sure that we pick as many of those up as possible. And of course, we can only get through here if and when we purchase that Eldritch Key, which we got from the shop in Aeropolis. We got into the shop in Aeropolis because we took out one of the bandits in the Earth Temple, so for that reason, you cannot access this location until you get to the Earth Temple. Notably, we had a red exclamation point above our heads that time, indicating that this is a high-level fight. 28 and 26 are the levels of the enemies here, and for context, Eloine is level 23, so yes, these are strong enemies, ones that we've seen before, but in terms of just their raw level and HP, quite high. So we can go Solid Snot here. I'm not sure it's going to be terribly relevant against these guys who are unlikely to use physical attacks, or at least if they do, that's not the primary concern here. They're mostly just really defensive, particularly magic defensive. So we might find that this time around, we're not going to do a ton of damage with the Thunderbolts. We will get the chance to take a turn. Fortunately, they missed there. This time, they actually go with a Flame on Charlotte. Charlotte, being Air Elemental, is typically pretty weak to that. That's not a great sign. Mardek, we might want you to jump in and do something like a Water Slash. That should be enough to take one of these guys out comfortably. And Slinik, how are we feeling about the boost? I'm thinking we probably want to make a point of upgrading to a new axe pretty soon now. And, because this is definitely not our best one. And we are getting the boost ability from that axe, so we definitely want to make a point of mastering that as soon as possible. So one could make the case here that we should deliberately take a little bit of time to boost up, and just one Amberistal was maybe a decent enemy to do that against. Wasn't entirely sure if Charlotte was going to have enough damage to take it out there. Of course she did, but if she didn't, I would have probably taken that opportunity to pass a little bit more. So let's take a look here. We see that it looks like we go to the right, this path will loop around and find its way over to this chest there. And then something else, perhaps further down that we can't see yet. We'll have to investigate further. Does appear as though, at least at the moment, every enemy that we've seen have been enemies that we've seen in the Sandflow Caves before. No new types of enemies. I think we did see some Temperances in there as well. A little bit unusual, but okay, this is the air one. It is faster than the other one, so it goes next. It's like, not too bad here. Could use a Thunderbolt, but let's bear in mind the air Temperance is, well, has 200 air resistance, so probably best to specifically target the earth one here. That's definitely enough to take it out. does mean that, well, in terms of damaging this air one, fire would be the best way to go. I'm not sure that we necessarily need you to do a special attack here, Mardek. That's not going to do anything here, but we might be feeling okay about taking a little bit of time against you, Air Temperance, because Carla is not terribly concerned about the air damage. I assume she has at least some air. Oh, air resistance? Well, maybe not, because we have an Earth Pendant on at the moment, meaning that she has higher Earth resistance, but actually lower air resistance. So, Carla, you're actually not a great person to be taking hits, and other than you, not much in the way of air resistance or weakness. So, I think we still give it a shot here. Lightning Bolt, of course, targets Charla. We could put on something like a regen on her. And Arrow Shell is a new ability for Charla coming from the Obelisk. We did, of course, see the fire version of this from Donovan, but as for what it does on Charla, well, it's very similar. It's just that it's the air version this time, so we'll put it on her. Mardek, you could perhaps either heal or even throw on a regen on Charla, because she doesn't have a lot of damage at the moment that she's taken, but that gives us a little bit more of a sustainable source of healing. And Slinik, we just keep on boosting for a little while here. We'll bump up your strength a lot, and then the hope there would be that once we do ultimately opt to attack with you, that it will, well, work well for you. You'll be able to take this guy on one hit. So we did just see the Temperance attack Charla. She had the arrow shell on, so it worked, but it reflected air damage to the Temperance, and what with it having 200 air resistance, means that it actually healed. We saw that on a few occasions before, so, well, we'll continue to use the arrow shells, yes, but in some ways, against enemies that deal to air damage, it's not the best time to do that, in truth. But we do need to master it, and I think ultimately, once Slinik does choose to attack, we will likely be able to one-shot the Temperance, so not too concerned about whether it has 750 versus 800 HP, I think. It's not going to make too much of a difference there. Also gives us a chance to, perhaps, master Solid Sonata on Eloine with a little bit more time here. Arrow shells to you guys as well. And Mardek, I mean, you could just throw a regen on everybody who's been damaged, and eventually, I think that will outpace the Temperance's damage. But long term, the boost for Slinik, I think, will be... I mean, I'm not really concerned about us losing this battle by any means. This is still just one Temperance. Mardek absolutely just tanks the hit there, so no problem. But we can throw in an arrow shell as well, just because we can. Mardek, who does not yet have regen? I think the answer is Slinik. This gives everyone regen status, and now Slinik back up to full HP. And getting somewhat close to mastering the boost, plus 8 strength. We will take a look in just a minute as to what exactly Slinik's strength has become after all this boosting. If you want to try to hit Mardek, then go ahead. We have now applied an arrow shell on everybody. I think we'll do it on Mardek here. Get close to mastering it just because he's the highest level, so it means we'll give the most experience to Charla. As for what we do next, we'll put on a magic shield. Charla's theoretically the person who's most vulnerable. And Slinik, if we boost you here, that gives you another 8, which again is maximum, which means you are up to 63 strength right now. So yes, I think we find that if we were to attack now, Slinik would have a lot of power. Eloine did just master Solid Sonata, so we're doing okay on that front. The arrow shell is halfway now, 60% of the way, before being mastered. Mardek, I mean, put on a magic shield on Slinik, I guess. Why not? As you can. So, of course, by doing this, we are blowing through a bit of MP here, and who knows as to when we will next find a save crystal or some other source of MP. So, in that sense, arguably, might have been not the best idea to do this right now. It would be perhaps preferable to do it when we're standing right next to a save crystal, which we obviously are not. Could perhaps shift gears with Eloine now that she's mastered Solid Sonata, and go something like Dolores Dirge to do a little bit of damage each turn. But like I said, I'm not terribly concerned about that right now, because I think, for the most part, when we do decide to start doing damage, we're going to find that we'll have plenty of that. Now, Slinik, I believe, is on 71 strength right now. Likely soon to be more than that. depending on what we get here. Now 4 away from mastering the boost, and +7 is also not bad. Let's see if we can get to 100 strength here. I think that's not out of the question. What with the pace Linic is on. Darla, keep on doing the arrow shells. Now 2 away for you. Mardek, at this point, why don't you just pass, save some MP? Linic, 3 away now, mastering the boost. Only 3 that time, in terms of how much you actually receive. Pass with you, Eloise, and just continue using Solid Sonata. Badger Shield means taking a little bit less damage there. Mostly Charla on the arrow shell. She's pretty MP heavy, but she has a lot of MP at this stage. Mardek, don't really need anything from you. It's Charla, and it's Slick. Both of whom are quite close at this point in time. Wrapping up what they were working on. Oh, you just miss. In fact, Eloise, I think, does have a defensive reaction or 2 that she's working on right now, so that's definitely not a bad thing for you to target her. Darla has now mastered her ability, so she's good to go. That means, Linic, it's all on you. 1 more boost for you, and then we'll be all set there. And I am curious to see what strength we end up with here. I think it's going to be awfully close to reaching triple digits. Once we do this, we'll see how much we get. Mastered now. That was +3 strength there, and Slinik is sitting on 94 strength. So, I'm curious to see. Yeah, sure, we'll just keep on going with the Solid Sonata. I want to see how much damage you can do, Slinik. Perhaps exact a little bit of revenge for that hit that you just took. Remember, Slinik will drain HP as well, and also has regen, so it's not like you're going to be on low HP here. You're already at max, but what will it be? 2,500 damage on a default attack, mind you, on what is not our strongest weapon. That was, of course, with a lot of strength boosting, but there we have a bunch of people mastering skills, so Darla is now, at least in theory, done with the obelisk in that she's mastered the skill. However, it is, of course, the strongest of the spears, so we'll keep it on her for now. Eloise now mastered Solid Sonata here, so we can swap over something else instead. That means the only thing remaining is Ballad of Balance, which is that one that makes it so that damage gets spread evenly across everyone. So it's a little bit difficult to imagine what that looks like until you actually see it, so we'll test it out soon. Oh, the other thing is, of course, as for Slinik, we'll want to put on a new axe for you, because now mastered, almost everything on the Mighty Axe. You actually need your offensive reaction of all things. We've only attacked 5 times when equipping this axe. That's an interesting one. I mean, I'd argue it's nice to have, but maybe not as important as picking up things like new active skills. The Earth Slash on what is actually a much higher base damage weapon goes from 42 to 52 here. So in some ways, I would kind of think might be worthwhile for us to throw this on. I feel like there's a certainly non-zero chance that we will forget to go back and master Quarry Insect. We are partway through, so at least when we look at this screen here on the offensive reactions, we will see that we're partway toward mastering Quarry Insect, and that will presumably raise that suspicion of, oh yeah, we'll probably need to go back and master this at some point. But I think, because, as we were seeing, going against some pretty strong enemies here, I think it's not a bad idea to throw on a stronger base damage weapon and start to learn Earth Slash as well. So, now that we're headed down this way, let's take a look at our map here, and we can go to the left toward that chest there. Why don't we give that a shot? Because we know there's something there. My guess is then that down and to the right is likely the way out of here. Another unavoidable battle, so presumably high level. More Amberistals. And this time we can throw on Ballad of Balance. Powerful piece of music that maintains balance by splitting all damage between the target's whole party. So if we do this, and then say, do something like a Thunderbolt on one Amberistal. Notably, I'm only targeting a single Amberistal here, and look what happens. It hits both. It splits the damage between them. Likewise there, that attack, that spell, the Amberistal, was only targeting one of our party members. And as you can see, it dealt the same damage across everyone because it split it evenly. The first time, must have targeted someone who had a weakness to fire, or at least was not 100% resistant. And then the second time, targeted someone who had more than 100% fire resistance, which must have been Mardek on the last one because he saw everyone healed. So, interesting in that way. It's a little bit hard to tell who they're technically targeting. But if we were to say, if we were to water slash on one enemy here, then we could probably take them both out in one hit with Mardek. But I think let's focus on instead going with Slinik, whose axe is absolutely ginormous, comically so, in fact. So if we could say use like an Earth Slash, let's just double check as to what your Earth resistance is here. The answer is 0. Let's try this. Remember, targeting only one of these guys, and yet it splits the damage between two of them. It's not quite enough to take them both out here. We could go for a Dolores Dirge, but let's keep the Ballad of Balance on, because we of course want to get close to mastering that. And as for Charlotte here, you could go for a physical attack. I'm not sure you're going to have enough damage to take it out. Oh, man. Splits the damage, yes. Not quite enough, though. There you see, again, damage getting split evenly across everyone. The amount of damage varies depending on which person those guys are technically targeting. It's really hard to tell who it is. But Mardek, you could heal here, because of course everyone has taken a bit of damage now. So it's not the worst idea, and let's double check here. I healed just Mardek specifically, and yes, even that now applies to everyone, split evenly. So that does save a little bit of MP there, because it costs twice as much MP to heal on everyone as it does to target just one person. We use an Earth Slash here should definitely take out everyone. And remedies are certainly not a bad pickup. Slinik does not have any. Let's make a point of putting that on Slinik then. That's what this item is. It is a power drink. Special Shaman's Brew, which restores 1000 HP and increases strength by 10 for the duration of the battle. Not yet seen any of that. That's a pretty strong healing potion, and then plus 10 strength. We saw exactly how much strength Slinik can get if we spend a lot of time dedicated to using the boost ability. But 10 strength, that is the equivalent of, probably on average, about 2 turns worth of boost, because remember, the boost can be anywhere from 2 to 8, I believe, per turn. Okay, so now Blood Lizards, and these guys are again enemies that we've seen several of before, but they're a higher level than we would normally find. So I think we, well, with Ballad of Balance, do we actually want to target all of them? Or do we want to just target one? So let's see what happens if we target all. Because look at this. Hit one, and then it hits all of them with that damage, but we're technically doing that 3 times still, and it splits the damage across everyone 3 times. So I think the damage is still a little bit higher. Now Eloine has mastered Clarity, and Slinik has mastered plus 20% MP here, which means Slinik, you are technically done with this. And Elwian, you are technically done with this. Of course, we are not currently standing next to a save crystal, so we do not have access to our item storage. So not a ton of options in terms of what else we put on in their place. We could throw on an air pendant just for air resistance, which I think we saw at least a little bit of that from the Temperances, so and that's maybe not a great idea. It's not a terrible idea either. If people all mastered antibody Charla has. Eloine, you notably have not, and Slinik, you have. So Eloine, why don't we throw this on you? And then is there anything else we can put on Slinik to fill in that spot? Or we could try throwing on plus 20% experience if you haven't done that yet, or any of a number of attribute boosting skills as well. Or even Resist Ether. I doubt you can fit that on when you're also working on Resist Dark. So let's try. Alright, we could go double AP, that's even more RP heavy. Let's try going with the plus 20% XP. So I don't recall whether Slinik has mastered that yet or not. Oh, also double gold. Oh, you have mastered that. Okay. So yeah, we can throw that on. Ooh, we will need to get rid of a little bit though. I think getting rid of the plus 20% MP is okay here, because of course we just mastered that. So let's throw this on. Does mean we have a little bit to spare. Go with the strength for a little bit more offensive power. Then, as for Eloine, take off the Clarity, just master that, throw on the Antibody. You do also have 1 to spare here. Spirit does boost the power of almost all of her songs. However, Ballad of Balance, I'm thinking is one exception, because it's just splitting the damage across everyone, and I don't see how Higher Spirit would affect that. So if we're specifically making a point of using that now, then maybe we go with the Vitality instead. Let's check. Yes, there's... Oh, down and to the right actually looks like that has a chest right there. So let's maybe go for that first. See what else we can find. Seeing some good stuff in here. The silver, that new potion. This time, oh, lots of these crystals, okay. Been a while since we last saw you guys. More Battle to Balance. And if we were to, say, use a Thunderbolt here, we'd definitely want to make a bunch of knots targeting the topazes, because, well, that would heal everyone. Whereas if we targeted specifically Fire Opal, that would at least deal some damage to everyone. I think it still works. It does, yeah. So notably, the topazes heal the air damage. However, because we targeted the Fire Opal instead and split the damage based on the amount of damage we dealt to the Fire Opal, it still dealt air damage too, and means it would normally, under other circumstances, heal to that air damage. It's a little bit of a workaround in that way. If you have one really strong enemy who's resistant to some kind of damage, then you can kind of find another way to damage it with that type of damage by using Battle to Balance, targeting the weak opponent. Here we find another Canderythope, which again is a very valuable item that is of limited quantity. So to pick one up here, of course we did also just put one on Slinik moments ago. That is big though, for sure. More battles here, and this time, ooh, also, been a while since we saw an antlion. Now remember, these guys do have the reactions. So you can throw on Battle to Balance here, but if we were to hit you with a physical attack, you would counter, and depending on who you target there, you might deal a fair share of damage, and that would be split across everyone. It means that everyone would be pretty hurt. So I think we're probably okay going with the spell here, because I don't think you'll react to that, and you are weak to air. Notably, no one to pass that damage off to, because you're the only person in the party right now, so it doesn't get split, but it's almost enough to take you out. You did Berserk. We have lots of time before you go next, so I think we can probably either heal or pass here with Mardek. Notably, Charlotte is quite low on MP right now. Could justify perhaps throwing an Ether at her. It's tempting, but maybe we try to just sneak on by for now without using any items. Slinik. Earth Slash is the ability you're trying to master. However, this guy heals to earth damage, so that's definitely not a great idea. Thinking for that reason, probably just go with a default attack. Certainly enough damage on that. So we're good there. Again, we upgraded the power of the axe. Does that help their end? I managed to win. I think sold some of those previously. So to pick up another one of those is not bad either. And now we have picked up all 5 of the chests, and there is a cave entrance here. And where the heck are we? The Miasmal Citadel is the answer to that. So, I noticed there's a save crystal here. Let's make a point of healing up and saving as well, probably, because this place is awfully strange looking and rather grim and dark, and there is notably a teleporter here to the left. Where does this bring us, you ask? Remember that broken teleporter in the Sun Temple? The one to the left brought us to Xanthusia, yes, but then this priest was saying now, yeah, that one to the right, we don't really know where it goes. It's been broken down for a while now. The portal on the right is active? But it's been off for centuries, since that cataclysm. I daren't go near it, wherever it leads. So, of course, the place where we just were is rather remote, so also very convenient to have a way to teleport straight into it. But the Miasmal Citadel, what exactly is the deal with it? Well, if you were wondering what the deal was with some of the items that we've been picking up in namely some of the temples, do you recognize some items here? What's this? Pedestal of Sunlight. It's a pedestal for the Miasmal Chalice of Sunlight. The chalice is on the pedestal. Its original elemental color has turned to a bright cyan. It pulses with a calm but powerful energy. So there's that. There's the Pedestal of Mind. It's a pedestal for the Miasmal Chalice of Mind. The chalice is on the pedestal. Its original elemental color has turned to a bright cyan. It pulses with a calm but powerful energy. Notice, however, that even though it says it's turned cyan, you do still see the color and symbol in the right corner here of what element this chalice presumably was originally. This being Fig, the one that we looked at previously being light. I suppose with sunlight, that makes sense. As for this one here, Pedestal of Tempest, which is air. It's a pedestal for the Miasmal Chalice of Tempest. Chalice is on the pedestal. Its original elemental color has turned to a bright cyan, and it pulses with a calm but powerful energy. As for this last one here, it's a pedestal for the miasmal chalice of spirit. Notably, Ether Elemental, fitting, chalice is on the pedestal. Its original elemental color has turned to a bright cyan, which I suppose is somewhat similar to the Ether color anyway, but it pulses with a calm but powerful energy. So, can you guess as to what the idea is here? Well, that's a pretty heavy hint there. So, here's the pedestal of forest. It's a pedestal for the miasmal chalice of forest. There's no chalice on the pedestal. Well, it has that earth elemental symbol in the bottom right corner. Do we place the miasmal chalice of earth on the pedestal? Or do we just leave it alone? Now, let's place the chalice. So we lost the miasmal chalice of earth, because the chalice starts to glow cyan like the others. Place it on the pedestal, yes. As for this one here, pedestal of flame. It's the pedestal for the miasmal chalice of flame. There's no chalice on the pedestal. You can see there, bottom right corner is, of course, the fire chalice, and so let's place it on the pedestal. Lose the fire chalice, yes, but, well, a couple more here. And just a reminder that, of course, it is not necessarily required for us to have completed those chalices in all the temples. That's where we pick them up, of course. Defeat 100 enemies in the temples, and you fill the chalice, you can then take it. This, well, of course, means that we are getting rid of the chalices, yes. So we'll place the water chalice on the pedestal of ocean there. And then lastly, this one here, miasmal chalice of abyss. There's no chalice on the pedestal, and I suppose fitting that that would be the dark chalice. And interesting as well to see, I think, in some ways, we are seeing what are more or less the opposites on opposite sides. So up top was light, bottom is dark. To the left was fig, the right was ether. Then here we saw, what, water, and then earth there. And remember, water is especially effective against earth, and then air and fire. So, also, interesting theme there. So let's place the dark miasmal chalice on the pedestal of abyss. And when we do that, the chalice starts to glow cyan like the others. The combined miasmal energy of the 8 elemental chalices opens up a portal in the middle of the room. Gasp! Who'd have guessed that that would happen? Definitely didn't look like a portal location at all. So, like I said, technically optional for us to have filled all those chalices and taken them, but by doing so, and also picking up the Eldritch Key, which again, we had to take out the person in the Earth Temple who had the key, go to the place in the slums of Varopolis, unlock the shop there, purchase the Eldritch Key, get down into the Sandflow Caves here, and walk around into this area. That is how we made it in here, because this is a new endgame area, of course that being the Miasmal Citadel. So you can get into that other room fairly easily, because just buying the Eldritch Key, I think, cost, what, 8,000 coins? But the key thing is getting all the Miasmal Chalices. So let's explore a little bit further here and see what the deal is. So we can, of course, go back through that portal if at any point in time we feel like we want to, just double back. But, 8 chests in here, so lots to find. Let's start looking, and this being one of them. Oh, I immediately closed it as soon as I opened it up, but I think what we found was actually our first dose of mithril ore, notably. Of course, we said previously when we were looking at the craftsman in Xantusia, the blacksmith, that there was an item, a mithril plate mail, that we were not able to make because we needed this item, and this is the only place where you can get it. It is a lump of rock containing the extremely rare mineral called mithril. Mithril would have been extracted and refined to be useful, but even so, ore like this is worth quite a lot. It's light elemental. So, we picked it up from this chest here, and whoa, our first battle in this area, unavoidable, and look at that! It's a mithril golem! I was gonna say, notably, mithril is, yes, a very rare element, much like things like gold and silver ore in that way. However, one notable difference is that it technically is not finite. One way in which you can get more of them to drop? Well, fighting these guys right here. Mithril Golem, however, level 29, 50 strength, 40 vitality, 60 attack, 40 defense. It's gonna be really hard to break through this guy's defenses, and when it attacks, it's going to hit pretty darn hard, as well as the elemental resistance here is quite a bit of them. Notably does have some weakness to air, so Charla can help us out that way. Also, Ether and Fig, not sure we're going to have much in that way, but 100% resistance to non-elemental damage, that's going to make things a little bit tricky as well. It's definitely a good thing that we made a point of healing first here. And for Eloian, what direction do we want to go this time around? I mean, it has 9,000 plus HP, so something like the Lower Sturge can take an awfully long time for that to work in our favor. I'm thinking something like Solid Sonata because it boosts our defenses, and this guy, like I said, is going to hit us pretty hard. Notably, it is slow, so we will have everyone go before it. That is probably a good thing here, because, well, we want to do as much damage as we can. Thunderbolt, I think, might be the best way to deal damage to it, so there we see just shy of 2,000 damage. Air Slash could work as well, but remember, this guy had, I think it was 0 magic defense and 40 physical defense, so breaking through that will be quite difficult. And just to double check here, Mardek, how much base damage do you have on your sword? Exactly 40. So, that's gonna make things a bit tricky for you. I'm thinking what we do here, we're gonna want to throw on some shields so that if and when we do get hit by those attacks, or at least maybe capable of tanking them. Now, Slinik does have Perforate, which rends through armor, lowering defense. So we could reduce that 40 defense here by doing that. However, notably, because it has 100% resistance to non-elemental damage, that does mean that it won't do any damage in the process. So this is a long-term answer as to how we might break through, but in the short term, not going to do any damage. Fire Breath, in some ways, might actually be the best option because, well, it's a spell rather than a physical attack, and in that way, that would not have any magic defense going against it. So, it's a question of what do we think we want to do? Prioritize the long term or the short term? Let's try a Perforate here. That way, we're freeing up Mardek to do a little bit of damage with his attacks, and it opts to target Elwian. Fortunately, she has the evasion to avoid it, at least for now, so we get away with one there. But I think we keep Solid Sonata active. Then Charla, another turn in which you can Thunderbolt is quite alright with me. 1,500 damage, a little bit less this time. Mardek, you could throw on more physical shields. I think Elwian does have a very high chance to evade as long as we hit our reactions. So in some ways, you and Slinik are actually the most vulnerable here. We, of course, already put on a shield for Charla. Slinik, why don't you take another turn here to Perforate, and then we'll probably stop there. It does target Slinik, and, well, look at how much damage it dealt. With a shield on, notably would have dealt almost exactly the perfect amount of damage to one-shot Slinik there if we did not have a shield on, so good thing that we did. And also good thing that we had Solid Sonata on, because remember, Solid Sonata also reducing the Golem's damage, so across those two things, yes, it was absolutely a difference maker there. So let's keep on the damage with Charla, at least, notably, damage seemingly keeps on going down each turn. Mardek, I think we probably need to take a turn to dedicate some healing here, rather than throwing on additional shields. You should have the strongest physical defenses, Mardek, so with you being one of the few people who doesn't have a shield on, that's probably okay. Elwian, like I said, it's mostly us relying on the evasion chance. Slinik, this time round, how are we feeling about needing to use Perforate? The Mithril Golem is now down from what was previously 40 defense to 29, which is still high, but maybe not insurmountably high at this point. Maybe we give it one more shot here, minus 5 more. Golem will go next, and fortunately misses Slinik as well, so that, yes, certainly helps. Gives us at least more time to whittle away at the HP with the Thunderbolt here. Let's do just that, and yes, the damage does keep on going down, which is unfortunate here. Mardek, at this point in time, how do we feel about, say, throwing in an Air Slash? Mithril Golem is on lower defenses still, 24 now. It's probably going to be pretty similar to how much damage Charlotte's doing, maybe a little bit less still. But across you and Slinik, those would be the only two people we have who will go before the Golem again here. So, do we feel confident we can take it out? Let's give it a shot. Just shy of 1,000 damage here. I don't think Slinik's going to have enough to finish it off. So, for that reason, do we go with something like a Fire Breath? Or a Perforate to further lower the defenses? Maybe. Another minus 6, and targets Charla. Again, the shield plus Solid Sonata was a difference maker there, because it dealt more than half of her HP in damage, so if she didn't have a shield on, she'd be dead. If we didn't have Solid Sonata on, she might have also been dead. So let's keep this up. Thunderbolt is unlikely to finish you off here, but it gets you close, perhaps within striking distance, for Mardek plus Slinik. Mardek, not quite enough, but Slinik, if you were to use, well, an attack that does deal damage, like First Slash, it is just barely enough, and that is enough for Slinik to level up as well. So, no items dropping here, but yes, it is possible to get actually 2 very notable things from those guys. The Mithril Ore, and also Evening Stars as well. So these are other things that you may have remembered my saying that, yes, although they are very rare, there are even some items that we can craft at the blacksmith that require them. They are also technically not limited. They are just very rare drops from those golems, but because, as you saw there, we can have random golem encounters anywhere in the Miasmal Citadel, it is theoretically possible to get any of a number of these, an infinite amount if you were to just farm those guys to no end. But with that, I think this is probably a good place for us to wrap up here because we have a lot more ground to cover in the Miasmal Citadel here. As you can see, we've only looked at 1 of 8 chests, and there might be even more to find out here. So, with that, I'll see you guys next time.